Hi everyone, thank you for joining me live. Thank you David again for joining me live. Thank you for everyone who will be joining me on the replay as well. And if it's the first time that we're meeting, my name is Isabel Martins from healthandnaturallife.com, and I work with energy healing, animal communication, anything energy consciousness related, pretty much what helps us understand ourselves better, how we work, how this beautiful reality that we're experiencing works, and how we most effectively co-create our reality and our experience with these beautiful, beautiful souls in all formats that we have around us. On this video, I'm going to talk about something that has fascinated me kind of in a weird way, but for a while, but it's been really hard to unpack, and it's our belief in guilt and in self-punishment. This has been coming up for me more intensely, let's say, in this past week because of what I shared in the video from past week, which was about de-armoring our centers of power, and a lot of de-armoring happening. Heart chakra, solar plexus, and our genitals. Usually those are the areas in our body where we store the most armoring, most protection, the most defenses against feeling whatever it is that we felt at the time that we locked those energies in our bodies. So as I go through this process of the armoring, of course, you start releasing the energy that was stuck and just condensed in those spaces. And as the energy starts to flow and to move, whatever was locked there in terms of emotions and information is starting to come, of course, to the surface, to my conscious awareness as well. And if you are doing any kind of release, the armoring, any other kind, you will feel the exact same thing, because the energy that will start to move is the energy that we didn't process before, and we kind of pushed it to the side, almost as a, I'm not going to digest this now, let me push it here and I'll digest it later. Well, now is later because it's time for that energy to just come fully online again, and it takes a willingness to go through, to see, to feel, to acknowledge, to accept the information, the judgments, everything that was locked and stored in that energy. And what has been coming up a lot for me is related to guilt, and well, it leads to shame and unworthiness. So all of these things that I'm going to share are my experience. You might have very similar experiences, but I'm going to share from my experience because, well, it is what I can share with authority, because it is what I am going through. So for me, there's a lot of guilt that's coming up around things like enjoying being in a body, enjoying my body, just feeling the pleasures of actually even simple things like dancing, eating, dressing, and feeling good about how I feel, how I look. All of those things, I'm noticing that I have some sort of guilt or fear. What comes up actually most is fear first. There's a fear of, I shouldn't be feeling this, I shouldn't be enjoying myself, I shouldn't be enjoying this food, I shouldn't. There's that fear. And as I started to go deeper in the layers of that fear, what came up was really okay, it's guilt that I am feeling this way when there are other people that don't enjoy, don't have food, don't have the same health, don't have the same. One that's really big for me is the fact that I don't have to slave, so to speak, 8, 9, 10 hours a day to actually earn a living, where so many people actually do have to. Well, it's not a have to, because we're all creating and experiencing whatever it is that's most poignant for us at any point in time. And I don't mean this in any type of condescending way, but we do choose some experiences to sometimes just move out of them and just feel, oh, okay, I can do this. So the fact that I don't have to, I'm blessed that I don't have to, or I created reality for me that I don't have to just be in that type of grind, 9 to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that I have been in the past as well, makes me feel guilty about enjoying my life the way that I am enjoying now, that other people don't get to experience this. So there's all of these sorts of Guilt about even receiving gifts. If I feel that someone is giving me a gift and I'm not paying for it in any way, I feel bad. I feel guilty. I feel that there's something wrong. And all of this led me down the drain. The drain. Well, it did lead me down the drain as I started to unpack this guilt thing. I have almost a thesis almost on guilt and self-punishment, because I take notes whenever these things come through in inspiration, and it is quite the picture. And at some point just made me think, what the hell are we doing here? We're playing a really twisted game in our society with guilt and self-punishment. But let me put all those things to the side now and just say that there are a lot of things around enjoying life, enjoying myself in my life, and enjoying even the people in my life that trigger the feeling of fear that something bad will happen, that I'll be punished somehow, that I shouldn't be feeling this way, I'll be attacked for feeling too happy. So all of these things are coming up, and they are all pointing to the underlying guilt of actually living a good life, being healthy, just enjoying myself. And all of that led me down into just unpacking even more, because these things consciously, rationally do not make sense. But as I started looking down, what came through was something that I was going to say we all do, but probably not all, but most of us do when we are little. If for whatever reason we are doing something or saying something, and we feel that the feedback that we receive from the person that's on the receiving end, or just witnessing what we're doing, if that feedback is negative and we feel it hit us, almost can be a physical hitting, or it can be an emotional hitting, a verbal hitting. If we feel that, we do this, we create a little bit of a trauma right there, because we hold our experience and we hold our breath, so we pause it and we start to feel bad inside. If we do or say something that's badly received, we internally feel bad. And when we are little, us feeling bad doesn't translate as I did something bad. It immediately goes into I did something bad, I am bad. Because everything that we do, everything that we experience, even if it is external, other people's moods, everything is about us when we are little. So there's nothing that's associated with someone was in a bad mood, so they yelled at me. No, it's, oh, I'm bad, that's why they're feeling bad. I shouldn't be this way. I should be better so that they can be happier or treat me better then. So it's everything points back to us when we are little. And it moves immediately from the feeling of I did something bad to I am bad. And I am bad is pretty much the definition of shame. So we move from guilt to shame really, really immediately, because it is an association that we make when we are little. And from that place of I am bad comes unworthiness. So we are bad, so it's not okay for us to actually receive. And when we feel that the hit of whatever reprimands or punishment we received, we close our energy. We just almost do this, feel I'm bad, close our life force, close our genius, close our joyful expression, our radiance, and we close our receiving, and we start the armoring process. As we close, remember, close our receiving. This happens a lot. And then we carry on with that closedness to receiving throughout our adult years, because we feel unworthy. Unworthy is an adult word. No child will ever tell you, I feel unworthy. Just doesn't happen. It's, I'm bad. I'm bad. And why do they feel that they're bad? Because they did something that was badly received by someone else, and they felt, okay, I did this bad thing, which means I am bad, which means I have to close. I can't receive, because there's another association that we make, most of us, I would say, when we do something bad, there's a punishment. It's not a natural association. It could be just that, okay, we did something bad. Even if we did feel, okay, I'm bad, if there was no pattern of punishment, we could still feel sad about that. but not necessarily find that we needed to close or we couldn't receive good things. It would be a lot easier to move from that feeling that I'm bad to self-forgiveness. But most of us are conditioned to, when we do something bad, comes the punishment. Even if it is something as simple as just go to your room, or you can't play with whatever it is that you're playing, you can't go outside to play, or even a physical punishment, which happens a lot in our society, especially in Latin cultures. I don't think as much in this day and age, but still happens a lot, even if it's just a slap in the butt of a child. No adult in their right mind would do that to another adult. So it just goes beyond reasoning why we do that to small humans and even to animals. So there's something there to say about unconsciousness. But that physical punishment or the verbal punishment of being yelled at, or something that can be even more damaging, the coldness as a punishment, as a form of manipulation, withdrawing love from the child. All of that just creates trauma and creates scars, and it creates that feeling of, I'm bad, close, I'm going to be punished, and if that person doesn't punish me, someone else will. So we start to create an association between I did something that was badly received, which means did something bad, I am bad, I'm going to be punished. Those three become like a little choo-choo train in our consciousness when we are little. They just follow each other along and just keep on going on a merry-go-round, because when we are little, we do a lot of things that don't really please our adults in our lives. So there's a lot of that going on. I remember even just breaking something, or not breaking in purpose, but something falling on the floor and something breaking, being yelled at. And I had a panic almost of breaking things, because I was, okay, I'm going to be punished. Just silly little things that nowadays my parents would just go, yeah, really, it wasn't a big deal. But because at the time they might have been upset or something like that, it just became a big thing and a big fear for me. We all have these kinds of experiences. So we, excuse me, we move from the things that would maybe be more natural for us to feel bad about, like hitting another child and feeling, okay, shouldn't do that, that doesn't feel good to me, to something like, oh, I'm really enjoying myself doing this, but I'm seeing that child over there feeling so sad, now starting to feel bad about this. This doesn't happen so much as we are children, but as we start growing up, it starts to spread. Our guilt starts to just be associated with things that make us feel good for whatever reason. And again, I'm talking from my experience. Yours might be different. And there's another type of guilt that's interesting. And I'm talking a lot about the association between guilt and unworthiness, because that's what came up for me. And it's being born into a culture where you are different somehow, or that you felt when you were born that you were a burden to your family in some way. That is a very tricky type of thing to unpack, because you are born into a culture and you feel different somehow, you are treated different, or again, if you were considered a burden in your family, you feel that burden. Even if you're never told, you feel that, let's say financially, you brought an expense to the family that they couldn't handle, or that was hard for them to handle. You still feel that even if they never ever tell you. So it starts to feel that there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me. And it doesn't go directly from guilt to I'm bad. It just goes straight to there's something wrong with me, which means I'm bad. And then because we are so trained to associate the did something bad, I'm going to be punished, it triggers the same train, but from the end side of there's something wrong with me, I'm bad, okay, I'm going to be punished. Guilt comes in between those two as well, just for being, and it becomes a feeling of, yeah, I'm going to be punished, I have to beware, I'm unworthy just for existing. crazy. Well, we all have our unique experiences. We all chose what we came here to actually, experience. But yeah, when we look at our society, it's crazy the way that things are run, the way that we treat humans, and the vastness of damaging or challenging expressions and experiences that we all have to move through to one degree or another. I kind of lost my train of thought here. Oh yes, I was talking about punishment. So punishment wouldn't be a natural segue for guilt, but we are, most of us at least, conditioned to experience that. So when we're little, the punishment starts following the guilt very, very often. So we then make that association and carry it into our adult lives. So whenever we do something that makes us feel bad, it's not necessarily even now as an adult for me, it's not that I'm doing something that is considered bad. It's something that I'm feeling uncomfortable with. It immediately brings me to those earlier feelings of I'm doing something bad, guilt, I'm going to be punished, closed. It just triggers the exact same train without it necessarily making sense. And that's when I started to look at my life, how I was closing my life. So in money, that's a really, really easy one that I see that I've done things in the past for whatever reason, because I didn't ever have a justification for it, but I started stealing when I was young. I started stealing when I was very young, actually. I was never in need for anything, so I came with the imprint almost of I don't have enough, I have to get it myself. So stealing was a part of my life and a part of my shame and guilt, because my parents caught me a number of times and I still didn't stop. It still felt that I had to do that. And that became a big association for me with money. So if I needed something, I needed to steal it. Never necessarily, no, I did steal money from my parents and they did catch me. So anything related to the arena of money has a strong imprint for me of guilt and feeling unworthy and feeling that I need to be punished for what I did. Even if I already took care of it energetically, there's still that association. So I know that I am limiting my financial expression, that I'm limiting what I am able to share and receive in the world, because there are still feelings of guilt associated with that arena. You might have as well in relationships. I have guilt in relationships of having yelled at people, of having been mean to them, of having manipulated. I went through it all as well. So again, we're all human. And there's still guilt around that. So I know that there are still defenses where I close myself to receiving love because of that guilt. So I can't fully allow the love to enter me, to feel it without it triggering a fear of I'm going to be punished, something bad is going to happen, or not even wanting to share what I'm experiencing with other people. So this is, it's quite a heavy and entangled type of dynamic that we create for ourselves. But I made notes here of something that I actually read from Seth that I want to share with you, because Seth, if you're not familiar with Seth, is a non-physical entity that Jane Roberts channeled in the 70s. If you're familiar with Abraham Hicks, it's a similar type of work, but it feels to me much more technical in the terms of how we create our reality and how we live here as humans. And he shared something about guilt that I have a note here because I want to read it to you. And it's on the biological origins of guilt. So it's here. This is from The Nature of Personal Reality, the book. I'm going to read it all. So it says, it is often said that man believes in devils because man believes in gods. The fact is that man began to believe in demons when he started to feel a sense of guilt, and the guilt itself arose with the birth of compassion. And he goes on to say that compassion is a biological response in animals that comes from a sense, not lost sense, of connection and of unity with the entire environment and other beings in which they are. So then it says here that men chose a different route. They use men, humans, chose a different route, and we chose to explore the conscious mind. And because of that, compassion rose from the biological structure that animals had, from that sense of unity. It rose from the biological structure up to an emotional reality. So the new consciousness, human consciousness, that was now entangled with a conscious, rational mind, accepted its emerging freedom, and now was faced with responsibility for action at a conscious level. And with that, we experienced the birth of guilt. And it says here, the hunter freed the hunter, because he was talking about cats and mouses. So if you see a cat playing with a mouse and then killing it, there's no guilt associated with that, because both animals at a biological level know what's happening, that it's not done with malice. It's a natural rhythm for both of them. And the consciousness of the mouse, knowing that the cat is going to pounce on them, even if they try to escape, as soon as they feel that, the pain is going to hit, they leave the body. So they leave before actually experiencing the pain. So continuing. The hunter, freed more or less from animal courtesy, would be forced to emotionally identify with his prey. So in the wild, to kill is to be killed, and the balance of life sustains all. This is the intrinsic and only real meaning of guilt and its natural framework. You are to preserve life consciously, then, as the animals preserve it unconsciously. So, strictly speaking, the translation from biological language of compassion to our own rational language would read, "Thou shalt not violate." So, guilt is pretty much the rising of compassion. We would have compassion if we were an animal, coming from that natural sense of unity and of being connected with other life forms. And we would not trespass, we would not violate life unless we wanted to eat something, and that's not a violation. It's, okay, I need to eat, so I'm going to hunt. And there is a biological understanding and agreement of what happens in those circumstances. So there's no harm done, there's no harm taken, almost it's natural. For us as humans, we kind of created a different way of perceiving the world with our rational minds, and we started to bring that biological compassion up to a conscious level, because now we wouldn't be in that natural flow of life as other animals are. We can be if we want to, but as we can see in our society, we can also step out of it. And that compassion came up to, instead of being an instinct, it just came to be an emotional response as well. So the only purpose of guilt, the only true purpose of guilt, is to not trespass on life, to not violate life. And this is life in our body, life in the people around us, life in our planet. So anything that we do that we say that we feel that is taking away life or diminishing life in any way, shape or form, that will very naturally trigger that sense of guilt, because it's that compassion of something that we wouldn't do if we were fully immersed in the natural flow of the rhythms of life. But because we have free will choice, animals do as well, but it's a different type of experience. We can do something that we feel is trespassing, and then that's where when the guilt actually kicks in. And it's not guilt for us to then punish ourselves. It would be like Dr. David Hawkins says, it would be more akin to, oh, I did this, I'm really feeling bad about this thing. Let's imagine that I said to this person because it wasn't called for, it was detrimental, it didn't actually help any of us, and now I'm feeling bad. Okay, it would be a healthy sense of regret and a feeling of, I'm not going to do that anymore. Next time something similar happens, I will have a different response. It would not imply punishment like we do. If we say something to another person that we then feel bad about, we beat ourselves mentally. We can actually beat ourselves physically by doing a lot of exercise or having to do something very vigorous, or depriving even ourselves of something because of our past conditioning as children, that I feel I did something bad, I'm bad, I have to be punished. I have to either constrict myself, restrain myself, not receive something that I like, or do something that implies pain for me, actively punish myself in any way, shape, or form. It can be physically, emotionally, or mentally. All of these are freaking unnecessary. Let's just say it like that. A healthy sense of regret, like Dr. David Hawkins says, it's all that's necessary, because the more that we beat ourselves up in any way, shape, or form to try and punish us for something that we feel is wrong, the more that we're actually reinforcing the pattern. We're not resolving anything, we're not changing our ways. Even if we think that we are just reinforcing the pattern of doing something, feeling guilty, punishing ourselves, because there's a part of us as well that's a rebel. It keeps on going the loop. Oh, I'm punishing myself. Let's see, next time you're going to get it. Whoever or whatever that you're going to get it is. So we don't resolve anything. A healthy sense of regret, so feeling the sensations, probably feeling the sadness of having done something that doesn't align with what we wanted, would be all that's necessary for us to start releasing that guilt, releasing the fear, releasing the fear of being punished, and starting to let the energy flow again, and actually healing something instead of punishing ourselves to then feel, okay, now I've paid my dues, now I can actually go do the same thing again, even if we don't want to do it again. If we find ourselves doing things like this time and again, it's because we are trying to avoid actually feeling the guilt and feeling the sadness from our past, not from that situation, from our past. And this is something that I also took a note here, and I want to share with you, because it's the way that I've noticed that guilt is under it. And I wrote here, I'm going to share it as well. It's my red flags for, oh, let me look at this, because there's guilt underneath. Anything that I feel that I have to justify having or doing, I have to look at it, because if I have to justify something, it's because I'm feeling that I'm defensive, for starters, and the other person is going to judge me, which means that I'm feeling guilty about something. I'm feeling that there's something bad about what I'm experiencing or what I have. Another one, if I feel that I have to downplay something, exact same thing. If I don't even want people to know about something, and this is so common in terms of money in our society, if we don't even want other people to know how well we're doing, for instance, look at that, because there is a feeling of there's something wrong, they'll judge me, they'll attack me, which means that whatever it is that I'm doing, first, we're not enjoying it fully. And second, there is still that fear of punishment, which means that there's still guilt, and there's still the, I'm bad, I'm doing something bad. There's still the unworthiness. I don't fully deserve to actually have this or do this or live this way that I am living. And that always creates trouble, because even if we are enjoying it in the moment, if we have that unworthiness, that feeling of there's something wrong with this, underneath it, we're going to sabotage it at one point or another, which kind of leads me to another thing, and just an interjection. Guilt, that I just remembered, is the root of pretty much all diseases. This comes from Dr. David Hawkins, that was a medical doctor and worked in this field of consciousness as well for many decades. He says that all the diseases that he came across pretty much could all be traced down to guilt. So that feeling of unnatural guilt that then gets associated with I'm bad and I need to be punished, that's the root cause of most of diseases. So the more that we start just releasing and unpacking this, the healthier we become, physically, emotionally, mentally, the healthier our lives become, and the more that we can actually share our love, share our light, and share our inspiration, instead of feeling, ooh, I shouldn't be this way because I shouldn't be this happy because people around me are feeling so stressed and worried. No, you start being happy and radiating, very generously radiating that happiness, and people around you, they will react however they will react. That's out of our control, but you're almost giving them permission, and you're like a flashlight illuminating a different state that they can then tune into. So, hi, EFT, let me just check what you are writing. How to not repeat actions. There's a sense of inappropriateness, big word there, and the consequences of your action. Negative karma, I'm going to pick on that one. It's something else that I actually wrote from Seth. I'm not sure if I have it here, but let me check, because this is talking to what you were writing there. Let me see. Yeah, they say this. If you believe that something is wrong, even if it doesn't trespass on the life of another person, meaning it doesn't take from their life, if you believe that something is wrong, then in your experience it will be, and you will consider it negative. So you will collect an unnatural guilt, one that you do not deserve but accept, and therefore you create. So there are things that we do that, yes, if we do an action that then has consequences for the other person, there is that sense of guilt that naturally arises within us. The karma that brings is what you can immediately work with, and it is that sense of, I did something that doesn't feel right for me. It doesn't mean that you'll be punished because you did something wrong. It just means that, okay, I'm feeling this, I did this thing to this person. If you allow it in your heart to feel that sadness, I won't even say that it's guilt. Guilt is already a mental construct. If you allow yourself in your heart to feel that sadness of what you did to that person, without going to the mental stories of beating yourself because I did this, now I'm a bad person, now I have to repay them for this, or I tried to make this better. Excuse me. From that level of feeling bad, you'll never get an answer that will be life affirming for any of you. So, and you or the other person, or even if it is a group or an animal or a situation in your life. So you first, my suggestion, go in, feel the sadness, feel the grief of what happened, of what you did or didn't do. As you allow that energy to actually be transmuted in your heart, you start to open, and whatever the original loving intention behind the action was, because there's always a loving intention, even if it isn't for the other person, it is for you, but it's usually for both. There's a loving intention that gets distorted, and then it ends up hurting either us or the other, or usually both. So allow the sadness, allow the grief of what happened to actually be fully felt, and when it just naturally unpacks, you will then be at a place, first, there won't be really any karma, because there won't be any energy stuck. And whatever happened will be transformed, and you will feel as well inspired to something. You can either feel, for instance, this is just an example, a blessing coming to that person, and you just send them just a huge wave of love, and that right there repays what would be considered the karma. Or you then, from that place of openness, just feel inspired to then just say something else, and that heals whatever happened. Or you feel inspired to do something, and that again takes care of, soothes the whatever happened before. The other person will have their own reaction to whatever happened, and that is out of your control, which is really hard for us empathic people to actually allow people to experience their pain, because we don't know what's important for them to move through in order to reach their own sense of wholeness, of empowerment, of aliveness, of joy and radiance. So we have to own what we did or didn't do, or say or didn't say, and just feel it within ourselves. Allow ourselves to feel the sadness, the grief, moving perhaps even to the anger, but just staying with it all within ourselves, without trying to justify, without trying to pay for it, without trying to push it down, without trying to distract ourselves. All those things that are kind of tricky to do when something as intense as guilt is involved. But doing all of that without saying that we're bad, just feeling it and letting it unpack. As it unpacks, we feel the difference, and when we are on that other side of the experience, so instead of feeling the guilt, then we're feeling the somewhat relief, and there will be still a memory of, okay, this is not something that I want to do anymore. But from that new state, we will have the new behavior, and whatever happened will be naturally harmonized. We will either feel inspired to do something, or just energetically it will help harmonize the sessions. And I'm going to say this for this: if you do need additional support or help with these types of things, because they can be hard to stay grounded within ourselves and move through them ourselves, I'm going to invite you, just check the energy integration sessions that I offer. I have the links on the description box. If you ever need help with anything like this, or anything else, of course, just consider reaching out, because it might be helpful to have someone on the outside actually holding the space, holding presence, and helping you create that container, so that those emotions and those things can be unpacked without us getting lost in whatever it is that we are experiencing. I hope that, yeah, answers your question, EFT, and thank you for asking. Okay, and let me see if there was anything else that I wanted to share. Oh yeah, another suggestion, and it was that for guilt, there's a very strong association with present, past, and future. So we can only feel guilt and the fear of doing something like that again if we have memory of what happened before that made us feel bad about ourselves, and we have a projection of, okay, if I do this again, then I'll feel this again. So guilt is very associated as well with time traveling. When we are more in the present and we just act from our innate response, whatever is happening right here, right now, that feels natural for us as a way to respond to whatever life is presenting to us. If we don't bring our past into the story, and if we don't project, if I do this, then that will happen in the future, if we just tune and live from the here and now, present in our bodies and to our natural responses, like a friend of mine would say, to whatever life is presenting to us, we will not be as subject to guilt, because we will be tuned into our hearts, into our souls, into our bodies, and we will only respond from what's true for us at the moment. And even, for instance, if the other person feels hurt about something, if we do say something that comes from our truth, it's never meant as something to attack. So the other person might take it badly, but we won't feel guilty. We will feel sad because of their reaction, maybe, but we'll know that we didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing that needs to be fixed or paid. It's just something that the other person is moving through in order to find their own sense of balance. So the more that we are present, the more that we're embodied, the more that we live from our innate, natural heart and soul responses to whatever is presenting itself to us, the more we're free from guilt, and the more that we help everyone else actually be free and respond from now awareness instead of past erroneous conditioning. So that's something that I also wanted to share. Being present and acting from our now moment. Awareness and responses is very healing for us. Whenever we do something that makes us feel bad, don't go into stories, don't go into fixing mode, don't go into any of that. Just allow the sensations to come up. Whatever it triggered in you, just let it all unpack, be felt, be acknowledged, and move through, because it's from that integration then that if there is an action that is ideal to be taken for the repair of whatever happened, it will come only from that place of integration within yourself. So you're giving yourself and the other person or people the best gift that you can give. And I think that's what I wanted to share here with pain. And I had another note that I want to share with pain. If there is something in your body that feels painful, an area, one of my shaman teachers, Surjika Healy King, says that he just touches the area if it feels painful, and it just says, okay, if whatever this is related to, I forgive it completely. You can try that one if you want. Ho'oponopono is a beautiful healing mantra for things like this as well. So it's just 4 sentences. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. If you want, you can check them out online as well. And you're just saying this to yourself, to your own internal being. If you want, you can say it to another person, or imagine that you're saying it to another person and see how it feels. But usually Ho'oponopono is said to us within ourselves, to our little children. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. And if you have pain in any area of your body, just try it. Because again, like Dr. David, excuse me, Dr. David Hawkins says, disease, all of it almost is related to guilt. And guilt implies punishment, punishment implies pain. That's our association. Feel pain in somewhere in your body? Just touch it to bring your awareness to that spot and just try it. Whatever this is connected with, I forgive it completely. And see if you can really mean it when you say it. Just whatever this is related to, I forgive it completely. And almost like feel like, okay, I'm letting go of whatever judgments I had around that. Whatever this is related to, I forgive it completely. And see if it helps. If it does, then you know that there's a strong foundation of guilt that's causing the stagnation of energy there. And then you can start moving through the layers and start unpacking it more and more. This is a very, broad subject. I was just looked at the time. I won't continue it right now, but it probably will start to unpack, and I'll probably share more about things that come, inspiration, ways for us to actually be with what comes up. If you have any questions as well, let me know. I will continue to let this simmer in my own life, be the guinea pig for myself, of course, and see whatever nuances come up that I feel are useful to share with you. So thank you for joining me live. Thank you so much for staying here for the entire session. This was a long one, longer than I was expecting. I very much appreciate you, David, EFT, everyone who's joining me live, everyone who's watching the replay. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Like, share, do what you feel inspired, and I'll see you on the next video.